Hey guys, 50s Kid here, and thank you for tuning into another video. Behind me is an X5. It's a 2001 X5. I believe it's the E53. I know it doesn't look much like an X5 right now, but that's because it's in various stages of repair. It's kind of a long story. I don't want to get too much into the paint, but I've been fixing the paint on this car, and the owner needed to take it back to take it on holiday last year, Christmas holiday, and so now it's back to me, and I will be fixing the paint, and I will be making some videos on that as well because there's still more to do. But one of the issues that was reported during the drive that he made was that when he was braking at around 50 to 60 miles per hour, just at high speeds, steering wheel was starting to shudder, which is actually really strange because this vehicle actually sat in his driveway for about 5 years, and then I rehabbed it and replaced the fuel pump and got it running again and changed the fluids and things like that. But it wasn't, the brake rotors weren't warped when he stopped driving it. So it was actually kind of strange that they would be warped, 5 years later. Brake rotors don't just up and warp. So that was a little strange. And when I got it back and I took a look at it, I found out that the suspension needs work. Specifically, the lower control arms need to be changed. They're loose, and that could cause you to have brake shudder at high speeds, particularly around like 50 to 60 miles an hour. So I'm going to change those today, and I'm also going to change the sway bar links as well. And this is a really easy job. All you really need is a set of wrenches and a hammer. And I'm going to basically show you how to do it. Okay, here we are underneath the car. This is the driver front wheel. And I'll try to move it for you. Hopefully you can see that. There's play in this lower joint. Yeah, and actually the rubber over here on these sway bar links is actually deteriorated in the back. I can feel some cracks. It's kind of hard to get the camera in there and see, but I decided to replace these as well because they're really cheap, and why not? These actually seem to be all right. Not sure what you call these ones, but something. So I'm not going to do those, and I'm just going to do the lower control arms. So I've taken the wheel off, and looks like I'm not going to have to do this line on my back on the ground. I'm actually sitting outside the car right by the wheel well, and I've noticed that there's dirt in here around the nut that is kind of preventing the socket from seating down properly. So I'm just cleaning that out. I already hit the bolt with a little bit of PB Blaster, kind of help loosen it up. And trying to get you a good angle here. Basically, I'm just scraping the dirt out. I kind of got stuck on the idea of, oh, let's just do this with wrenches. Simple wrenches. And if I can, I will. But if not, I'll turn to my socket set. And, if really I have air tools, that's what I want to use. But I'm going to see if I can do this as simple as possible. This on top, by the way, is actually a hex socket to hold the stud in place, which I don't think I'm going to need to stick anything in there to hold it. I don't think it's going to turn with me. I think I'll be able to break the nut loose without having to hold the inner nut. This is probably going to be more of an issue when tightening it. Hit it with a little more PB Blaster. Especially on top of the threads. And let that sit for a while. So it looks like I'm not going to be able to use my wrench because I can't get it seated all the way around the bolt, and I can feel it grabbing a little bit, but I think I might end up stripping the bolt if I try to use the wrench. So instead of that, I'm going to use my socket. It's a 22 millimeter, by the way. I'm using the biggest one I have, the half inch. And I'm just gonna hit it a couple times to simulate that hammering action from an impact wrench to break it free, as you see I did. And that's kind of all there is to it. I don't like to, you know, crank on a bolt because it's too much of a chance that you're gonna slip off and end up stripping it. I find that's how you always end up stripping bolts, you know, and if you just give it a couple of impacts to the side, as long as you have it held down securely, I find that I don't strip nearly as many screws as I used to. And here I kind of have two options to free this. I can hammer down on top of the nut because I'm not actually keeping this part, so I don't need to put it back. I don't mind if I mushroom this out a little bit. But the other option is to hit the metal thing that it's going through to shock it loose. And I'm gonna do this. That's the option I'm gonna choose. And now that I'm deaf, that's not working for me. Hit it with some PB Blaster, let that go through. Let's give it one more try. Plug my ears, Jesus. I'm gonna tell you what, I might need to buy a puller. I was pretty darn certain that would just break free. You know what? I'm gonna loosen it at the other end. And because maybe it is loose and I just can't even tell. So I'm gonna get loose from the other end. It's actually an 18 nut and a 16 on the bolt head. This is one case where I can't tap it free. But there we go. Yep, it was free. So, lesson learned. Loosen that end first, and that way. Hell, it might just fall. This might even just fall free to begin with. It might not even be pressed in there that much. So now we know what to do. Now you know what to do when doing this, and now I know what to do on the other end. Sway bar length is an 18. And I'm gonna come up here and like I was saying, tap it loose. Yeah, I think there's actually a nut on the back of that that you have to hold, and yeah, that is the case because you can see that on the new part. I gotta hold it in the back there with a wrench. So it turns out it's actually an 18 on the existing one, the OEM one. 18 on the front as well. There you go. On the lower part of the sway bar, it looks like it's super awkward for me to get my wrench in here, my ratchet in here, but arg. Might have to think of a different way of actually eventually doing this. I got it loose that way at least. Ideally you want some thin wrenches for this job. I guess they call those service wrenches. I don't have those, so I'm kind of making do. This is the 18 that's being slipped onto the bottom. And I'm switching to just a 3/4 socket set because ratchet and socket and ratchet because it's A little smaller gives me a little more room to work, and this particular ratchet has some finer teeth, and it's just making the job easier. If I had two 18 wrenches, I could use that too. Gear wrench would be really nice. I don't have an 18mm gear wrench, only a 17. Oh well. All right. And she's out. So I wanted to give you an idea of the state of the old one, the rubber. You can see it's all cracked. The joint's moving real easily. This one's cracked as well. And I've noticed that there's actually a washer. I believe this was on the top. This was on the back of the top link. The nut was on the front of the bracket, and the washer went behind the bracket. So I'm going to keep that washer. I don't have that washer on the new part, so I'm going to transfer that washer to the new part. So it comes with these self-locking nuts, and I think I'm going to use those. I was considering for a moment keeping the old nuts. They looked like they had a bigger area, but I think I'm probably going to keep these new nuts because they're locking, and they say you should use the new nuts anyway in any case. So I'm going to do that. And here's the new one. As you can see, the joint doesn't really move easily. It's a lot stiffer. I can feel that it's a lot stiffer anyway. You probably can't see that it's stiffer, but yeah. Make sure you match it up, obviously. One side goes, one side actually tilts out this way. The other side tilts back this way. So you know, if you're watching, you should be able to not mix these up, or you shouldn't be able to mix these up. As I said on these, it's actually a 15mm wrench, and hopefully my wrench isn't too thick for this. I don't want to damage the rubber boot, but it looks like once it kind of gets scrunched on, it looks like that rubber is not going to be scrunched by my wrench, so I should be able to hold it in place while I torque it. For some reason the front bolt is a 19, not an 18, and I've actually decided that I'm going to cheat and use my impact socket with a little swivel head adapter here. And this fastener needs to be torqued down to 74 foot-pounds, which is going to be an interesting challenge. Yeah, okay, we should be able to do it this way. All right, there we go. Yeah, and again, I have no problems cheating on the top either. All right, I've switched to my 1/2 inch. Set it to 74 foot-pounds, and there we go. So on the new part, the new control arm. It's hard to get it in a frame here, but anyway, you can see this is the this was the thickness of the old nut, and the new nut is actually even thicker. So I'm happy with that. I'm reusing the old bolt for the back end. The old stud, the bolt and nut. So remember, it went in from the front. So that's cool. They're actually not all the way pressed on, but it'll pull itself in. So I'm just sort of moving the ball joint. Yeah, the ball joint. Trying to get it up into place with that. And our new nuts right here. Okay, and really the only reason I'm not cheating here and using an impact is because I don't have the right adapter for my impact wrench with me for my 1/2" socket, plus the camera's in the way. My concern here is that I'm turning that inner bolt, and I think that I am, which really sucks, because that basically means we do need to use a wrench. I have to do this really old-fashioned. This is a number 6 hex bit, Allen bit, and this is a 22mm wrench. That's what I'm using to tighten it. The long and slow way. So I've got it, the bolt pretty much almost all the way down, and you'll notice I've repositioned my ratchet here. Hopefully I can show you. The ratchet's sort of, it's actually wedged in here against the suspension components. So as the bolt wants to turn, clockwise, it can't, because the ratchet is actually propped up against the lower control arm itself right here, right in the back here. Sorry, it's really difficult to show this right here. So anyway, it's propped up against the back there. Let's come back down to here. And unfortunately, there's no way I can get a torque wrench on here. I don't have one of those torque wrenches that has open jaws. So this needs to be torqued down to 59 foot-pounds, and I think I can basically just get it good and tight with my long-handled wrench here. I'm going to sort of estimate what 59 foot-pounds would be. I knew what 74 was, and it was pretty tight. I could feel what it was before, so probably about there is good. Yeah, you'll just have to guesstimate that. In fact, maybe now that it is tight, it might be possible to stick a torque wrench on there at 59 and see what happens. Maybe it's, I'm hoping that maybe it's so tight that the inner stud won't spin, because that's usually what happens when something is tight and you're getting it off. It's so tight that it'll break free before the inner one spins. I don't know if it actually works in reverse, come to think of it, because I've never tried it. Let's see what we see. Yeah, okay, tight enough. And now for the final one. That was an 18 on the front and a 16 on the back. Okay, this one actually needs to be torqued to 74 foot-pounds plus 90 degrees. And I'm using my half to do that, which I wish had more teeth now. So there's 74. And it's going to be real interesting to turn it another 90, but and I don't know if that's even possible, to be honest with you. It's actually pretty difficult. I'll just make it 245s. How's that? Or we can just stop there. That's really, really, really tight, and I'm fine with that. So I wasn't actually going to film the right side, the passenger side, until I noticed this. This is the ride height sensor, and it's connected to the lower control arm. So it's going to be pretty easy to disconnect. This is just a 10 8mm bolt. Looks like this opened up right there. So that should be enough, definitely enough room for me, I think, to just kind of move this out of the way once I get the control arm loose. Coming in with air power on this one. Always wear your safety glasses. Looks like the ride height sensor is actually bolted in with this bolt, in fact. So that made it even easier. I'm going to disconnect it. Now this can kind of come down. And now we're going to remove the other side. Again, I'm cheating. Ah, there we go. Looks like it does not just fall out, of course, which is what I thought originally, which is why we need the hammer. So hopefully a couple of strikes this way. It's actually always advisable to keep the nut on there, by the way. Forgot to mention that. That way when you do knock it free, the nut will prevent it from just flying off there. Just because the camera is just kind of in the way of me getting a good swing at this, I'm probably gonna have to do this off camera. So I just knocked it loose, and what it really did the trick was a bunch of light, small taps actually. Kind of like that. There's a little pin, on the bracket for the ride height sensor that fits into a little key. So, no need to worry about alignment issues. Before I actually get this in tight, I'm remembering to slip the bracket right here underneath the new control arm. And let me thread the back of the nut on here. And I'm going to slip the other end of the control arm in. There. Put the little nut back on the that little bracket that holds the ride height sensor. There was basically there are a couple indentations on the control arm to show you where the bracket should be mounted to. Okay. By the way, remember when I said it would only take a couple of wrenches to do this job? I might have lied, but you know, whatever it takes. That is about it. Again, that's 74 plus 90, so says the book, but I couldn't get it quite that tight. That's 59, and the two sway bar links are 74 each down there. And put the wheels back on, torque those to 105 each, and go get an alignment check. Go get your alignment checked, basically. So I hope this video was helpful. Thanks.